Hi there everyone. After last week's success at my Jupiter pie, I thought I'd have a go at a different planet this week. As it's Galentine's Day and Valentine's Day this weekend, I thought there's only one planet that I can do, and if you have seen some of the pictures from the New Horizons probe, you'll understand why I've chosen that planet. If you haven't, just stick with us and I will explain as I go along why I've chosen to do Pluto today, which is not a planet, hence the name of this recipe. I also thought I'd have a go at trying to do a how-to video in my kitchen. So I've got a couple of videos set up and hopefully you can bake along with me at home. I'm also going to show you how to do the gluten-free pastry that was in my Jupiter recipe last week. My dad is allergic to gluten, so really this is the only pastry that I make, so he can actually enjoy and eat the things that I make as well. So to get started with, I've already measured out 225 grams of gluten-free flour, 110 grams of cold butter. I always use cold butter, you want to keep everything as cold as possible. I've cubed that, and because it's going to be a sweet pastry, I've also added a tablespoon of caster sugar as well. So I should point out as well, this you get messy fingers, but you also have to work quite quickly with gluten-free pastry. It dries out really quickly, it crumbles, and then it makes it really difficult to get it in your pie dish. So I've also got the cold water that needs to be added. I've got an egg out. I've got behind me the cling film and greaseproof paper already cut out and measured, and my rolling pin. So I can get on with this as quickly as possible. Also, you need to go preheat your oven, which I've forgotten to do. So I'm just going to do that now. You want it at 180 degrees C for a fan oven. Everybody's ovens are ever so slightly different, so you'll end up learning. Anyway, let's get on. So what I recommend is scrunching with your fingers. Now you want to do this as quickly as possible. You don't want to get the butter too warm, and you want to do this until it starts to resemble breadcrumbs. Another way of doing it is just to rub it between your fingers and your palms like this, but just work as quickly as possible. Whilst I'm doing this, I also thought I'd just start to explain a little bit about Pluto. So it's not the 9th planet from our sun. It was declassified as a planet. So it's a little bit sad really, but there we go. What else? So you can start to see it's coming together. This recipe is going to be, it's got tropical fruit in, so I'm going to be using a coconut as a base, sort of desiccated coconut mix. I'm going to use blackberries and mango to try and get the different shades of Pluto. Because as you know with SciRecipes, I like making tasty food, but I don't like wasting food either. So you can eat, that's the idea, is you can eat all these recipes. But when you look at pictures of Pluto, it's kind of a bit of a boring colour. But if you start to delve into NASA's archive, there was several different types of cameras aboard the New Horizons probe, and it was able to take these sort of coloured images. I'll explain a bit more later when I'm done, but it was able to take these coloured images, and with those colours you could then start to identify the composition of the surface of the planet. So it's actually those images that I've been using to try and come up with this recipe. So anyway, there we go. What did that take? Take like a minute, didn't it? And you should hopefully see it starts to resemble breadcrumbs. Don't worry if you've got slightly big lumps of butter in, because when you start to roll that out, it will spread out. And those slight slithers of butter will kind of add a bit of a crispy texture to your pastry, which is what you want. Let's make a little bit of a well. Break your egg in, and you want 1 tablespoon of water, like that. Break up the yolk, mix it in with your fingers, and just start to incorporate the breadcrumb mixture into that, and you should hopefully start to see it come together as a ball of dough quite quickly. I'd recommend just trying to use your fingertips. You do not want to overwork this mixture. So try and roll it together as quickly as possible. You can put it out on a surface if you want to. I just like using the bowl, it's less mess to clear up. Like this. So start to press it together. If you think it's a little bit too dry, you can add a little bit more water, but I wouldn't add too much because it goes quite sticky very quickly. So try to get all the crumbs from around the bowl, rub your hands together, get the crumbs off your fingers. And there you have it. Okay, 1 ball of gluten-free dough. Right, I'm going to quickly wash my hands and I'll be back with you to show you how to roll it out. Okay, so I've wiped down the surface, I've got my pastry already, and we're going to do a technique called blind baking. So we're going to partially bake our pastry in the pie dish, and then we're going to go and put in all the fillings later on and bake it again. So with gluten-free pastry, it can dry out really quickly. I wouldn't recommend rolling it out on a surface with flour or anything like that, and this is just something I do now. This technique I'm about to show you. So cut out a sheet of greaseproof paper that's bigger than your pie dish. Lay your ball of pastry on top. Then lay cling film on top of that, which is about the same size as your greaseproof paper. Begin to just slowly press down with your rolling pin. You can turn it, press it the other way as well, and what you want to do is just start to roll out this pastry so that it will fit in to your pie dish. You probably want about maybe 2 to 3 millimeters thickness if you can achieve that. But it doesn't really matter if you've never done it before. Don't worry too much about it. Just so long as it fits in your pie dish, it's all good. The great thing about this is that you can just rotate your greaseproof paper if you want to keep changing the direction that you're rolling in. You want to do sort of an even pressure all along your rolling pin to get it the same thickness. Sort of my top tips really. Hopefully you can start to see some of the streaks of butter in your pastry as well. That's what's going to make it really crumbly and really tasty when it's baked later on. So that's really awesome. Okay, so get your pie dish and start to see if it will fit in. We're almost there. Don't worry if you go over the edges. We need a little bit of pastry for the top, so which we're going to cut into a shape. So don't worry if you've got any left over. Okay. Yep, so I think that'll do. Right. Next bit, flip over and slowly peel off your greaseproof pastry. You're going to be using this greaseproof paper. Don't scrumple it up, you're going to need it in a bit. And then you can lift this up and lay it over your pie dish like this. And then you can start to slowly, using the cling film, help fill it in. Like this. So, and then just use your finger slowly to fill it in. And I mean, honestly, unless I'm making, you know, like mince pies or anything with tiny little tartlets, this is the only method I use. So for tartlets, I still roll it out between greaseproof paper and cling film, but because the pastry is small enough that I can then use like a little fish slice to lift them up and put them in the dish. But for big tarts like this, this is the only way I've found that works with gluten-free pastry. So anyway, I think that's about it. You kind of want to avoid any little air bubbles and stuff. Then slowly peel the cling film off. Again, don't scrunch it up because we're going to use it in a second to roll it out. Then you want to get a knife and just slowly cut around. Ooh. You can crimp if you want, it's up to you, but because it's a planet, I like doing, or it's meant to look like a planet, I like doing it kind of circular, like that, a circular and straight. Gone a bit down there, never mind. Right, and then the last thing you want to do is get your fork and just prick some holes in the bottom. Okay, before we put that in the oven, I'm going to quickly use this greaseproof paper just to roll this out again. Same thickness as before. So, if you've seen the pictures of Pluto, there's kind of this heart-shaped surface feature in the corner of the planet here. So I'm just going to roll this pastry out so I can cut a heart shape out. It's going to be about the right size, so you can kind of put it on and get an idea of the shape that you want. So roughly a heart like this. It's over the edge, so don't worry too much about this side, but we can sort it out later. Okay, any spare pastry that you have left over, I make little tartlets with them and fill them with jam. Again, like, don't waste things if you don't have to. I'm just going to transfer this to cling film like this. Okay, let's try and seal it up. Go put that in the fridge because you'll need that later on. Ready? Okay. So take your greaseproof paper, laying it in, then hopefully you've got some baking beans to do blind baking. Just pour them in, push them out to one side. Excellent. Right, so this is going to go in the oven for about 15 minutes with the beans in, and then after 15 minutes we take it out. I take the beans out and then I put it back in. By that point the pastry sort of set, bakes a little bit in the dish, and then when you put it back in it won't puff up and things. That's kind of why you put the fork marks in as well. So if you don't do this with the beans, the pastry puffs up and all that space that you want to fill with yummy goodness is taken up. So ideally this is what you want to do. Okay, come back to me in 20 minutes.